was 11-time South African champion Castrol Int.
Oh, I haven't rallied for 3 years, so I hope it's like riding a bicycle. I'll have to drive myself in. I haven't driven the car a lot, so the Thursday I think I'll just try and settle down, and then maybe we'll see where we are and take it from there.
After 2 hugely popular special stages in Centurion, the rally moved into the Witbank and Greener areas for 3 more stages before the first rebunch at Ermelo. From Ermelo, competitors headed for Panvalt and Amsterdam for the second rebunch before moving into Swaziland.
The move, I think, from Ermelo to Centurion, bringing it closer to the public, it worked out beyond their expectation. I mean, it's fantastic turnout here today. Everybody is so excited. I think we as the sponsors are more than delighted. I think the competitors, the spectators, the promoters are all in for a fantastic rally. We're going to have a fun time.
Over the years, the Castrol Rally has developed into more than just a major motorsport event. It doubles up as a social event that draws personalities from all branches of motorsport from throughout South Africa. The Castrol generates an atmosphere few other events can emulate, but for competitors it offers a serious challenge of man and machine. First car on the road after the withdrawal of Kenyan crew Ian Duncan and Dave Williamson were reigning national champions Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide in the factory Castrol Toyota Conquest 4x4. Following the retirement of Castrol Int and Frans Boschel 3 years ago, South African rallying has been dominated by Damso and Bonafide. They won 7 out of 8 events in last year's championship, won the first 2 events this year, and were looking for their 4th Castrol Rally victory. Despite the return to action of Int and Boschel, all the experts were tipping Damso and Bonafide to make it 3 in a row in this year's national championship. Most pundits were also in agreement that the major challenge to Damso and Bonafide would come from Enzo Kuhn and Guy Hodgson in the Hyundai accent.
Yes, of course, we're running the turbo car now, and it's very difficult to say. You know, we have never competed against the normally aspirated cars, or I haven't seen a turbo car. There are a lot of advantages on the faster stuff. The car runs well in top gears, but it's also much slower into the corner without the engine braking. You can't use the gears to stop into the corners. And then, of course, we have the lag problem, and I have to get used to this new way of driving. It's a totally new discipline, very different from what I'm used to. So I'll be able to tell you after the first 2 stages how competitive we will be.
There was a special reason for the talented Kuhn to do well on this year's event. Father Christo won the inaugural Castrol Rally way back in 1972. But there was plenty of interest in battles that were certain to develop throughout the various classes over the next 3 days.
And here we see there's a bit of a threat in the front-wheel drive class in Castrol Int.
Yes, I think it will be quite interesting, and one is always going to have a bit of respect for the older generation in the sport. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
The Stanbrick VW Golf Synchro in the hands of Jannie Hubik and Douglas Judd is the only locally developed car that currently fully conforms to the Formula 2 regulations, seen as the formula of the future in South African rallying. Hubik and Judd are chargers from way back, but also waiting in the wings was the second half of the most successful partnership in the history of rallying in South Africa.
Well, you know, it's exciting to be back. I've missed a couple of years now, and this is an exciting car, a new venture by the Koreans into South African rallying and worldwide rallying. So, you know, it is exciting to be right in at the beginning and to be back in rallying. And it's amazing how you sort of pick it up as you go along, making your service notes. And Dan and I were practicing a bit, and he got sort of lost it a bit in the mud, and he said it's amazing how you just know how to correct it, sort of instinctive, but the instinct's kicking in.
Castrol Int won an international reputation as a racing driver in sports and saloon cars, but it's primarily as a rally driver that he will be remembered. 11 South African championships go into the supervan Frans Boschel legend, but after a 3-year layoff, it was bound to take the pair time to get back into the swing of things. While Int and Boschel were easing their way back into a rally rhythm, Kenyan competitor Glenn Edmonds was reflecting on the challenge of coming to grips with South African conditions.
I got to admit, the competition here is really good. Your cars are specially designed for this event, whereas ours is a safari car. So we're a lot heavier, and you know, we have disadvantages, no doubt about it.
Edmonds and navigator Gary McIntyre were out in a state-of-the-art Mitsubishi Lancer Evo, similar to the car which won the Kenya Safari earlier this year. The crew ran into a minor problem early on, and handbrake turns in the middle of Centurion are not recommended under normal driving conditions.
My previous record has been quite good. Out of the 3 that I've done so far, I've finished 2 in not bad positions. Basically, you've got to keep it on the road, keep the car together and not try and win the rally in the first few stages. And you've got to pace it and see how fast the pace is. If it's a bit hectic, you've got to try and slow down and see where you can catch it, maybe at night. Try and stay with the bigger cars, the 2-litre front-wheel drives. That's basically our approach. Is to just hang back a little bit, see what the pace is, and not try and set the pace, and see what happens at the end of the rally. Day 2, maybe we then start dicing, but day 1 is really just to get through into Swaziland and then start those nice stages there.
And then 90 right after telephone pole. Wow. Ja, en on the grass, straight.
Cassie, this vehicle was in an accident and it's just had a total rebuild. You obviously haven't had any chance for testing. What do you sort of think of your prospects and chances?
Very good indeed, because while the truck was at a panel beating, Skill had taken a gearbox and did a lot of gear ratio changing. So I've got a better first and second gear now. Tyre-wise, we're sticking to the bigger tyres because I think at the end of the day will be a benefit to us. Mechanical, it's beautiful. Sounds perfect. We haven't got a problem.
Plenty of work ahead for Springboks Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux, and a trip down memory lane. For Sarel van der Merwe and Frans Boshoff, a combined total of 19 Castrol Rally wins started in 1975, with victory in a Datsun Triple S. With the rally starting to gather momentum, there was an early scare for Enzo Kuhn and Guy Hodgson. At the service point at the end of Special Stage 3, there was plenty of activity in the Bankford Hyundai camp.
Enzo, you were having problems at the side of the road on the way to stage 3. Can you tell us what it was?
We were just concerned about the gearbox oil temperature going off the scale. It was over 150 degrees, so I was a bit worried about that. But it seems now that it just overheats because we were doing about 200 k's an hour on the open section, just trying to make the stage. And it seems that it's all right in the stage, but I'm worried about it because the gearbox was overheated a lot and we could smell the oil.
At the front of the field, Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide had taken an early grip on proceedings in the Castrol Toyota Conquest. Special Stage 4 provided crews with a few problems, but the Toyota pair extended an early lead to 32 seconds. It was cold and overcast, but there were plenty of spectators at the Hendrina special stages. With their false alarm out of the way, Guy Hodgson and Enzo Kuhn were pushing hard to stay in touch with the leaders. Racecam action provides plenty of evidence that rallying is no drive through the park, with Kuhn hard at work in the Bankford Hyundai in tricky conditions. The ever-spectacular Jannie Hubig and Douglas Judd in the Stanbrick Golf posted the third fastest time on stage 4 behind Damso and Bonafide and Kuhn and Hodgson, who had the advantage of four-wheel drive. Among the spectators were Francis Tucker, the father of the Castrol Rally, and his wife Joan, who are now retired in Somerset West. Hubig and Judd were followed through Special Stage 4 by Kenyans Glenn Edmonds and Gary McIntyre, who were still trying to find their feet in local conditions. There were no such problems for Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley in the Team Total Toyota Conquest. The Natalians are among the rising stars in South African rallying scene and had quickly slotted into the top 5. While Enzo Kuhn and Guy Hodgson went their merry way, there was disaster for the second Bankford Hyundai accent, driven by former Zimbabwean Billy Rotenbach and Johan Seeling. The normally aspirated Hyundai was heading for retirement with a dropped valve. While Rotenbach and Seeling were slowly making their way out of the stage, Jürgen Fechem and Neil Ferree were in full flight, and some spectacular motoring from the Transvaal champions was to put them into 5th place overall at the first rebunch in Ermelo. At the end of Special Stage 4, the Castrol Toyota Conquest of Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide had built up an early lead of just over 30 seconds. There was slight concern over the after effects of hitting a water splash, but never the most talkative of men, Damso was in a relaxed mood.
Everything is going very well at the moment, just except the last stage we had quite a bit of water, so we got water in a distributor which had a slight misfire towards the end. So I hope that was all. It was the problem.
There were no dramatics from Sorel van der Merwe and Frans Boshoff in the Castrol Int over the first 5 special stages, with the pair looking cool, calm and collected. A drive shaft and differential problem warranted a discussion with team manager Johan Evertser, with the old firm in a solid third behind the four-wheel drive Castrol Toyota Conquest and the Bankford Hyundai Accent of Enzo Kun and Guy Hodgson. Down memory lane again with another motorsport legend among former Castrol Rally winners. Jan Hettemer, a double Springbok in motorsport and cycling, twice won the Castrol in the 70s.
100.
Special Stage 5 produced the first hint of problems for Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley in the team Total Toyota Conquest. The pair were sailing along when a gearbox malfunction saw them roll to a halt. While Lawrence and Paisley disembarked to carry out running repairs, Terry Brandt and Marty Olivier in the Autotech VW Golf sailed past the stranded Toyota Conquest. All was going well with Brandt and Mrs. Olivier in the early stages, and they had quickly settled into a steady rhythm that had taken them into the top 10. The car was sounding good and all was well with the team on a cold day that produced intermittent rain squalls that often made life uncomfortable for the crews. Behind Bran and Olivier, the early fireworks were coming from Hagen Vacken and Neil Ferree in the team Total Toyota Conquest. Vacken comes from a rally family, with his late father Harry and uncles Lambert and Ruloff, all top flight drivers in their time. Young Hagen is a chip off the old block and is making spectacular progress through the field. Also up into the top 10 were Springbok's Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. The pair were running at the head of the Video Sport Pioneer Plastics Off-Road Challenge, which formed part of an event within an event on the Castrol. Coetzee and Leek won the inaugural Off-Road Challenge on last year's Castrol, as well as picking up a top 10 finish. Going along at a slightly more sedate pace were Zambian driver Satwan Singh and his Kenyan navigator Surinder Tati in a Hyundai Elantra. A regular on the Castrol in recent years, Singh finished third 2 years ago in a Toyota Celica, with Leek doing the navigating. Behind the Hyundai Elantra, life was a little difficult for Paolo Piazzomusso and Cindy Harding in the team Total Fiat Uno. They were caught in one of the intermittent rain squalls that swept across the Mpumalanga countryside. On the treacherous surface, Piazzomusso had his hands full.
Load to light, keep straight.
Open your head, Dr.
Open my what?
At the end of stage 5, Hyundai Supremo Billy Rotenbach was now in the role of a spectator.
You know, we're still in developing. You know, we're trying to get the car to perform better and better. And we get a lot of our components from Australia. And I think that's part of one of the problems, that one of the components failed.
A late change saw Cindy Harding link up with Paolo Piazzomusso in the team Total Uno. Business commitments kept regular navigator Nick Haddon at home, and with Chart van der Walt sitting this one out, Cindy stepped into the breach. Mrs. Harding's husband Steve won the Castrol in 1989 with Johan Evertser.
How was it out there on this last stage in the rain?
Very difficult conditions. You can probably pick it up on the in-car camera. We just couldn't see anything. The window was misting, the wiper blade wasn't working well, so we couldn't see very well. I think I put in a few bad words in there, but nevertheless we got through it okay.
Special Stage 5 was also full of incident, where a grim-looking Jannie Hubig and Douglas Judd were concerned, with the Stanbrook Golf starting to look a little worse for wear.
Man, there's a long water stretch at the bottom of the stage, and the car stopped halfway through. We were basically in the middle of the road, and then one of the competitors came past and also battling to get through the water, and he slid sideways and then damaged the back and rear of the car. But unfortunately, I think we've lost about 6 or 7 minutes in the stage, so that's a bit of a disaster in any case.
At the first rebunch in Ermelo, the Hubig-Judd combination had dropped way down the field. Predictably enough, Dermso and Bonafide were leading the rally ahead of Kun and Hodgson. Brandon Olivier were third, with the old firm of Van der Merwe and Bossel fourth, and Vacken and Ferree a superb fifth after a spirited early drive.